Right. Well, folks are going to still trickle in for the next couple of minutes, but I'm going to get started just because we have a great full session for you today. So welcome to Girls' Day at the Statehouse Session 5 on community organizing. My name is Logan. I'm the community organizer at Maine Women's Lobby, and I'll be facilitating this session. But also we have Desti, who is here as always.
Hi, everyone. Happy to see you all.
And we also have Dania, who is going to be doing breakout rooms and things today. So if you have any tech needs, definitely shoot Dania a little message, and we will do our very best to make sure that you are getting the tech support that you need. And so I am so excited to announce our welcome speaker for this session. Here we have Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, who I think is really the perfect person to introduce this session. She was a member of the AmeriCorps Vista program. She has been a field organizer. She was a senator for Senate District 14. And now she is Maine's first ever female Secretary of State. And so please join me in welcoming Secretary of State Shenna Bellows.
Thank you, everyone. It's so awesome to be here. Thank you, Logan and Desti and Maine Women's Lobby and Maine Women's Policy Center. I am so excited to be with you here right now. So as Logan shared, I started my career as an activist. And indeed, growing up, both of my parents were role models to me because both of them were activists. My dad advocated for peace and against the rising number of nuclear weapons around the world. My mom ran for local office for the planning board to save a bald eagle's nest near our home. So they showed me from the very beginning that activism can take many forms, and it's something I was inspired to do. So after graduating Ellsworth High School and then college, I went into the Peace Corps in Panama and then served, and it was in the Peace Corps that a friend of mine said to me, "You are an organizer." And I said, "Organizer? I'm not even that organized. Like, what do you mean by that?" And she said, what I mean is you love bringing people together around issues that matter. And indeed, in the Peace Corps, I served as president of a group called Women in Development, Gender and Development. We were looking at issues of gender and women's issues. In the Peace Corps, we held workshops on family planning. We organized a scholarship program for girls because in some places around the world, girls' education is not valued like boys' education. And for girls in Panama, it's very expensive to go to high school. So we had scholarships for girls to be able to attend high school and get the things that they needed. So that was interesting to me. I remember that conversation with my friend because I didn't know what an organizer was. And I thought to myself, yes, I love bringing people together. I went from a Peace Corps to AmeriCorps Vista in Nashville, Tennessee. And I definitely recommend to all of you as you're thinking about your career in service, looking at public service, looking at organizations like the Peace Corps and the AmeriCorps. I worked with Nashville, Tennessee's largest public housing project with teenagers who were the first in their families, often to go to college. And we organized savings programs and paid internships and college scholarship opportunities for those young people. And then 2002 hit and I didn't have a job. So my dad said, "You should volunteer for something that you care about. Come home, live with us, and volunteer for this amazing person named Shelley Pingree, who was running for elected office." So I did. I started out volunteering. I did such a good job as a campaign volunteer that they hired me to work for the Maine Democratic Party that year. And that was another important lesson, is sometimes you can start doing something that you love as a volunteer and find paid work, although I'm a big proponent of paid internships and paid work. Shelley didn't win that particular election. That's another lesson, never give up. Like myself, I lost my first run for elected office And Shelley never gave up, and now she's a member of Congress and I'm Secretary of State. But I didn't have a job, and I sent out over 100 job applications, and I only heard back from 3. But one of those organizations was the American Civil Liberties Union, whose mission is defense of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Fun fact, when I was growing up, I had a copy of the Bill of Rights and the preamble to the Constitution on my bedroom wall. Now, as Secretary of State, I am thrilled because I have a copy of the Maine Constitution on my office wall. I love the Constitution. And at the ACLU, I was hired literally as an organizer. That was my job description. And so my job at the National ACLU was to organize campaigns across the country on issues like civil liberties, surveillance, marriage equality, voting rights. This was the dream job of a lifetime. And another lesson that I've learned in my activism is if you work on things that you care about, you will be very good at it. So I was in my dream job. I loved what I was doing. And so I got a promotion. I got hired to be the executive director of the ACLU of Maine, to move home to Maine, which was awesome, and to get to be in charge of the whole organization for the state of Maine. In that capacity, I kept my activism career going. I joined very quickly with Equality Maine and Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders on the Maine Won't Discriminate campaign. This is way back in 2005. We were fighting for anti-discrimination protections in Maine law. And a week after we won, we got together and said, now let's start planning for marriage equality and the freedom to marry the person that you love. We worked on that campaign for 7 years. We didn't give up. We won in the legislature, then we lost a referendum vote. The day after we lost, we had a press conference and we said, we are moving forward, we're going to keep fighting. And in 2012, we were successful in a statewide vote to allow the freedom to marry for everyone. I also did a lot of activism in that work on a lot of other different issues, but the marriage equality was probably the most meaningful opportunity. I decided to run for office. I didn't win. So I started my own business, consulting to nonprofits, doing different activism around immigrants' rights, for example. And I worked for Consumers for Affordable Healthcare, working with them to try to raise funds to improve healthcare access. And then an opportunity opened to run for state senate. I became a state senator in 2016. And I want to share one other lesson of activism that I learned as a state senator. And that was watching the power of young people to influence not only my vote, but my peers' votes. Because at that time, the budget for school-based health centers was cut, which would have meant the loss of a local school-based health center at a high school in my district, as well as several others through the state. After talking to folks at that high school about what it would mean for healthcare, I co-sponsored a bill put in by a colleague whose local high school was also at risk of losing their school-based health center. When the public hearing for that bill happened, students from Maranacook High School came and testified, and they blew legislators away. It was awesome. It was so inspiring to me and everyone else. One student talked about being able to get a strep test without having to miss class. Another talked about the stress of being a high school student and how the school-based health center helped her take care of her mental health. In the end, the student advocacy on that bill helped us pass it and get it signed into law to protect the school-based health center in my Senate district and all across the state. So, perfect example of activism by young people at work. So what I'd like to leave with you today is that advocacy can take many forms. There are many avenues you can take. First and foremost, do what moves you, do what you love. Whether it's like my dad fighting against nuclear war for peace, or like my mom fighting for environmental justice, or like myself working on civil rights and civil liberties and the Constitution. Find that piece that makes your heart sing, that makes you want to move forward, and you will excel. My second piece of advice in activism is that this is a journey. Sometimes you can have successes immediately, like those school-based health centers and the students that won that bill that year. But more often than not, you have small successes and then big failures. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That definitely continues. You have to not be afraid to lose, even sometimes not be afraid to fail yourself, whether it's running for elected office or running for a leadership position. It's really 100% important that you get really comfortable with recognizing that you're not always going to be successful, but that the perseverance, the willingness to move forward through failure or through loss, that's what's really critical. And I think, you know, as Secretary of State, one of my goals is equity and inclusion, and really thinking about who else is with you on this journey. Who are you fighting on behalf of, but how are you doing it? How are you doing it in a collaborative and thoughtful way? How are you involving the broadest community possible? In my office, I recruited some portraits. I have 2 women that you can't see. Sojourner Truth, who was an abolitionist speaking out against the enslavement of humans and speaking out for women's rights as well at a time when people thought it was either or, either rights for African Americans or rights for women. She was speaking out about rights for both. She's right above me, above my computer. That's really important. I have Frances Perkins, the first female commissioner of labor nationwide, worked on things like minimum wage and the weekend and Social Security, really important initiatives like that. And behind me is Frederick Douglass, a really thoughtful civil rights hero, again, speaking out, an abolitionist speaking out against slavery, but also speaking out for women's rights in a very inclusive way. And so thinking about who are your role models, who inspires you, and who do you bring on that journey of activism with you as you move forward. So I'm really thrilled that you guys are going into these breakout sessions today to become activists. Perhaps you already are activists in your school environment. There are just so many ways, whether it's joining a civil rights team, volunteering with the Sierra Club, volunteering with the League of Women Voters. Maybe we're running for office someday. If you are at all interested in elected office, you should run. I always like to tell people, I grew up without electricity or running water until I was in the 5th grade. I was poor. I had a lisp. I had to do speech therapy in school. You know, the odds might have suggested that I wasn't someday going to be in elected office or be Secretary of State. But because of help along the way, because of that coalition building, because of following my heart, because of not being afraid to fail, and because of doing what I love, I've been able to achieve this latest dream job. So with that, I will close. Thank you, Maine Women's Lobby. Thank you, Dusty. Thank you, Logan. And thank you all of you who are joining us for these awesome sessions and who are really building the future of Maine.
Well, thank you so much, Secretary of State Bellows, and I am so excited that I get to call you Secretary of State Bellows because I've been calling you Senator Bellows for a couple of years. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I think you can see in the chat that everyone is just really grateful that you were able to join us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Big hand for Secretary of State Bellows. Woo!
Wonderful. Well, that's just, I think, the best start that I can imagine for a session like this. And so now we're going to move into a little discussion of community organizing. First off, I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to have all of the organizers who are on the call just introduce themselves. You can just say your name, the pronouns that you use, and what organization you work for. You'll all get to know these organizers in your breakout rooms, but I just want to give a sense of all the incredible organizations that we have with us today. And also, I'm going to be going down the list of organizers that have MAUD in their name. So if you haven't done that yet, please do so. So let's start off with Ronnie.
Hi, folks. Thanks for welcoming me today. My name is Ronnie. I use they, them pronouns. I am raised and based in Lewiston, Maine, and I work for the Southern Maine Worker Center. We're an organization that works on the intersection of health and workers' rights. And yeah, I'm really excited to be able to talk more about that work we do in the breakout.
Great, thanks, Ronnie. Kate?
Hey y'all, my name is Kate Vaughn. I use she and her pronouns, and I do a lot of organizing. The organizing I'm paid for is with an organization called Grandmothers for Reproductive Rights. So it's organizing older women around rights to abortion, birth control, and reproductive justice issues. But I also do a lot of organizing that I don't get paid for, which you should know. That is how most people do the organizing work in the world. And my focus there is on harm reduction, so supporting dignity and health for folks who use drugs. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Happy to have you here, Kate. And Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here today. My name is Lindsay Ware. Pronouns are she and hers, and I am an organizer with the Planned Parenthood Maine Action Fund. We are the nonpartisan advocacy and political arm for Planned Parenthood of Northern New England. And folks probably know that we are a reproductive health care and sexuality education provider in Northern New England. And I am based out of Portland.
Wonderful. And I agree that you had a little bit of lag. So you were like, it just sounded great. Just know that. And Bright.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bright. I pronounce she, her, and hers. I'm originally from the Congo, and now I live in Lewiston, Maine, and I work for Prosperity Maine, which offers financial education, counseling, literacy for the community at large, and I'm very excited to be here and speak to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Bright. And Evan.
Y'all, I'm Evan Murray. I use he, him, or they, them. I work for the League of Women Voters, where I do voter education and engagement, and we do youth organizing around democracy. I'm also an organizer. I love that Kate pointed out that most of us do this maybe paid one way and the rest of the time the other way. Do a lot of work on LGBT education and inclusion.
Thanks, Evan. And happy to see you. I think I first met Evan at the Women's March in it might have actually been 2020. We thought we would we talked all about what we would do in 2020, and we ended up doing like none of it, so.
Well, some things happened, but it was a really lovely,
happened.
Every once in a while you're at a big event, and yes, lots of people have organized it, and then you run into someone else and you discover that you have some shared goals and get really excited, and then just once in a while that gets interrupted by a global pandemic.
Sometimes it does, but you know, you have to stay versatile in your organizing. Sky.
Hi, my name is Sky Goslin. I work for Maine Youth Justice, and I also do some work with Maine Inside Out as well. So Maine Youth Justice is a nonpartisan campaign to fight to end youth incarceration and invest in a range of community-based programs that really help youth's needs. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Sky. Abby?
Hi, I'm really glad to be here today. I'm Abby Strout-Bench. I use she, her pronouns, and I work at Mabel Wadsworth Center. We're a sexual and reproductive health care provider up in Bangor. We provide a wide range of services, including abortion care, prenatal care, gender-affirming hormone therapy, and we're a little less known because we're an independent abortion care provider. There's just one of us right in Bangor, but we're very similar to Maine Family Planning or Planned Parenthood in the services that we offer. Happy to be here and excited to talk more.
Thanks so much for coming, Abby. And we have Jillian.
Hi, Jillian, she, her. I'm also an organizer with Lindsay on the Planned Parenthood Maine Action Team. And she did a great job describing what we do.
Great. Darcy.
Hey everybody, I am Darcy Cook, she, her pronouns. I'm a community organizer for a small grassroots nonprofit in the greater Bangor region called Food and Medicine. Our work is all around economic justice, issues of poverty, and workers' rights. And like a lot of the other folks, I have some side unpaid gigs that I do. I volunteer a lot on campaigns for women and BIPOC folks trying to get more diversity in office. And I'm also a client and a big fan of Mabel Wadsworth. So rock on, Abby, good work.
Love Mabel Wadsworth. Also love your wood stove in the background. Definitely trying to get on that level. Izan.
Hey everyone, my name is Izan. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I work with Maine Youth Action at work. So I'm doing predominantly work with 3 different groups, the Young People's Caucus. So we meet with decision makers and lawmakers. I work with the youth planning team that helps plan our big conference. And I work with a statewide youth policy board that focused in mental health and suicide prevention. So that's some of the work I've done.
Thanks so much. And last but certainly not least, we have Ruby.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruby Green. I'm based in Thomaston. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with Hardy Girls Healthy Women. We work on empowering young women, and I'm very excited to be here today.
Great. And for those of you who were there for our first session, Hardy Girls Healthy Women did a fabulous session for us, and we love them very much. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to introduce yourselves. I just wanted to do that because while not every student will be able to chat with every organizer, I wanted to make sure you knew the diversity of organizations that we have the privilege of working with. And just to tell you about that. So before we go into the breakout rooms, I did want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about what community organizing is. I think the Secretary of State Bellows did a really incredible job summing it up, but I'm just going to talk a little bit more about it. You know, over the course of this last month, we've looked at a lot of different levels of the government. You know, the first person that you heard from was Governor Mills, who has the authority to sign or not sign legislation into law. And we've talked about the legislator, which is the bodies of legislators that make sure that good legislation that most folks agree on makes it to the governor's desk. And we talked about committee hearings, and we've talked about the importance of legislators as individuals. And so we've really talked a lot about this upper part of the pyramid where decisions are made, but what about that entire bottom of the pyramid that is everyone else? If, you know, our legislators are there to try and represent their communities and represent the needs of their communities, how do you make that connection between individuals with needs and the collective action that's required to address those needs? And that, I think, is where the magic of community organizing comes into play. To start off, I wanted to share a quote from the Black Lives Matter founder, Alicia Garza, from a great book that actually Donnie and I just read through in a book group facilitated by Kate, where she talks about her definition of community organizing. So she says that community organizing is the messy work of bringing people together from different backgrounds and experiences to change the conditions they are living in. It is the work of building relationships among people who may believe that they have nothing in common so that together they can achieve a common goal. And I love this quote. I think that it really hits the nail on the head, partially because of what it says about community organizing and also what it doesn't say about community organizing. I think that she's completely right that at its heart, community organizing is really about building relationships and engaging really deeply in our communities. But what community organizing isn't is some specific action. You know, I think that sometimes the reason that I think it's important to define community organizing is because in some ways it's a little bit of an umbrella term that people call a lot of different things community organizing. And I think that they're all correct. But so focus, you know, and so I think that you will also find in these breakout rooms that as many different community organizers as we have in here will all have a different way that community organizing actually manifests in their work. So we've definitely talked a lot about the legislative process, and community organizing is a big part of trying to influence that process. For example, if there's a really important committee vote, you might try and get all of the constituents from committee members' districts to call in and tell them how important that bill is. Or if there's a really big vote in the legislature, a lot of times folks will bring groups of people up to Augusta so that they collectively can really say that you know, that a bill is really important to them, either passing it or not passing it. But there's also a lot of incredible community organizing that doesn't really interact with the legislative process, either because that's not the solution, the problems, or maybe it's there are just different ways to solve that problem in the first place. I think a great example is that Présent Maine in Portland has been, along with an army of volunteers, putting out just incredible packages of food to all of their community members throughout Portland. Community organizing could look like knocking on somebody's door to talk to them about an issue that you find important. It could look like planning a protest or inviting people to a protest. It also could look like it could also take place online and over social media. I think that we've all can speak to the fact that the internet is kind of a mixed bag in terms of being an effective space for community organizing, though, as Alicia Garza very specifically points out in her book, there is a difference between a hashtag and a movement. And I think the person who coined the phrase Black Lives Matter would definitely know a lot about that distinction. And so as we go into these breakout rooms, I really would love folks to think a little bit about what community organizing might look like for you and what it might look like in your own community, because every community has different needs, and so that means that every time you organize that community, it's going to look different. Another thing that I really like to keep in mind when I'm doing community organizing, and again, this might not be universal, but I really try and think a lot about whether or not that organizing that you're doing is giving power to communities that have not had that power before. Who are you bringing into your movement that wasn't involved before? That doesn't always look like, say, organizing so that you can get a member of that community elected to the legislature, though, of course, that's a really great way to do things. But if you're doing good community organizing, hopefully you are not only helping that community come together to solve that problem, work toward a common goal, but you're also improving their own ability to solve their own problems and make change and collectively work together to get their needs met. Because as Shenna said, sometimes you really go hard for a goal and you don't get it at all. And so good organizing helps you feel like, well, we didn't accomplish our goal, but we have a really engaged community now, and so we've still made progress. Or say everything goes really well and you accomplish the goal that you set out. That's fantastic too, but we're always going to have something else that our communities are going to need to take on and work through. And so it's not just going in and telling people what to do, but it's going in and asking folks what they need and then helping them to have the ability to solve those problems for themselves. And so I'd say that's probably my good overview of community organizing. All right.
Welcome. I wish we had more time.
Oh, I know. That is always the thing with breakout rooms. They're either too long, or like you first get there and you're like, I don't know any of these people, and then by the end you're like, 5 more minutes, please. To answer your question, Phoenix, we are not going to be talking about the new Discord mods. That is a process that is still ongoing, but we will be sending out a final email to everybody with a lot of those details. And we'll talk about that at the end of the session. But right now, I would love to open up the floor for any comments from students or comments from the organizers about what you discussed or any new things you learned or big revelations that you might have uncovered.
I can go first.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Sorry, Sophia, you can go after me. What I really learned, I was in the room with another moderator, Jillian, and I thought I was the only one who felt this way, but I was very glad that she too felt that way. But we both agreed on the fact that we kind of don't like the word community organizer because we feel that it can sometimes be intimidating, especially to young people. And oftentimes they may think like, oh my goodness, this is too daunting for me. Like I can't overtake all of this because it seems like such a big word. And so we kind of like boiled it down to just like connecting with your community and finding what it is that your community needs and working towards that, but all about connection. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I was in Bright and Juliana's group, I believe, Julia. But yeah, we had a great discussion, and my major takeaway from that was the meaning of community is everyone together, working together and bringing in as many voices to the table as you can is really important to get everyone represented and to motivate everyone to inspire change in your community. I thought that was really amazing, and I learned a lot from that conversation.
That's fabulous. Anyone else want to chime in, either from that group or if that idea resonates? I know that in our group, we did have a little discussion about community organizer can feel like, yeah, it's I don't know, something that can be a little intimidating.
I was in Bright's group, and the other, I forgot her name, but I don't want to be rude and say it wrong. So we were talking about that, and basically one of the girls had a question, and they said, what would you do if someone said you couldn't do it? And we're talking about how like they get like kind of like motivated by like someone saying they couldn't do it and stuff like that. And I thought that was interesting because it's like, learning on how like they keep moving even if people are saying like you can't do this because of your gender or like stuff like that.
Absolutely. Or your age as well. I think that there's a lot of folks who really discount the potential of young people. Were there any good ideas about, what somebody who is in 8th grade right now could do to do community organizing? We had some really awesome suggestions in our group. I'm wondering if anybody else touched on what you could do right now if you wanted.
I was in Juliana and Bright's group. I think that was her name, sorry. But you just have to find something that you're passionate about, and even if you don't know what that is now, you'll discover it over time through your experiences.
I saw Zoe C's hand.
Yeah, well, in our group, we talked about how there are a lot of different volunteering opportunities for youth in our communities, and also different opportunities at schools. So getting involved now can really help to build our love for community organizing and help out even in 8th grade or whatever grade everyone's in.
Hi, is it okay if I, sorry, Maddie. I just wanted to say that something that we talked about in our group, I was in Bright's and Jillian's group, and something we talked about is that even the smallest things that you do matters to someone, and you can do something that you think is insignificant and small, like give someone something to eat, and it will actually, but it makes a difference in time. It'll make a huge difference to someone. So that's what we talked about for what 8th graders can.
Yeah, we talked about like being kind, and also if you have like a club that you want to join that helps with what you're looking for, like a civil rights team or something. And if there isn't a civil rights team at your school and you have the opportunity to like make a club, which we have at our school, we have to just run it by someone. But if you have that opportunity and there's no civil rights team and that's what you want to join, then you can like take that action and make that club and get an advisor or from a teacher.
Absolutely. I think one thing that I did also really want to touch on in this session is community organizers come from everywhere. And I think that, with the number of organizers that we have today, you probably learned that we all came from really, really different places. And that, maybe it's easy to think, I think when you're younger, that you need to do everything right or you'll never do the thing that you want to do. But I think that, it's community organizers are often a good example of like, A, you'll be just fine even if your path is totally different from what you expected, and B, you might not even know what you want to spend your time doing right now, and that's totally okay too. And so, you know, we really want to make sure that everyone knows that like you're not too young to make change in your community, but you're also never too old to completely change what you want to do, and go for it. So I just wanted to say that briefly, just because that was sort of my own little passion thing about it. But were there any other really interesting discussions that folks covered?
My group, Bright and Jillian's group. So Bright was talking about how she joined like this like things. Maybe I think one of them was called like the Lion Team, I think, and she talked about how like she went out in the community and helped a lot of, you know, like she went to an orphanage, I think that's what she said, like and help. I don't remember what she did there, but like, you know, probably helped out in some way. And I thought it was really interesting how she was like like in high school and still helping out the community in many, you know, ways.
Great. Well, yeah, we're seeing in the chat, it's okay if folks don't like talking in front of people. That's totally cool. But also just friendly reminder that you can feel free to chime in the chat. Were there any takeaways as well from, you know, the organizers? Any things that, you know, you might have learned while you were in here too? Because I think we're all trying to learn as we go. Oh, sorry. And Abarash, I see you have your hand up. Sorry, there's a lot of folks. It's doing my best to keep track of them, but go for it.
Our group was like, we had amazing discussions. The takeaway I took from that is that if you have a plan, an idea, and if you're really passionate about that, you are granted success, and no matter what you go through, that will make the success even more appreciated. I'm a bad public speaker too.
Not a bad public speaker at all. Avrash, I know your mom. Will you tell her Kate says hi? It's really nice to see you growing up.
All right. I am not seeing any other hands, so please shoot me a message if you did. But I think that is those are really fabulous takeaways. I wanted to give a little round of applause to all the organizers for coming and speaking today, because I am just always incredibly blown away by the people that I get to work with, and even just in finding more organizers for this group. I met I met Bright for the first time because I was putting together this session. And so like, it's just wonderful that even something like this has helped me bring the organizer community, you know, in a little closer. And so thank you all for helping me do that. So we have a little bit of housekeeping for the very end of the session. And 1 second. Oh, yes, Dania, we will do we're going to do like a fun group picture, but we're going to do that at the very end, just so that folks who don't want to be a part of it can turn off their cameras. But I would like to turn this over to Desi for some of our final housekeeping.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for facilitating that session, Logan, and thank you to all of the mods and organizers and activists who are here today. And now I'm gonna thank a whole lot of people, because this, you know, a series of 5 sessions for Girls' Day at the Statehouse would not be possible without the commitment and labor of lots and lots and lots of folks. And so I am really excited just to take a few minutes to, let's see, Dania, do you want to share the names of our sponsors? Our sponsors are the people who pay for the financial costs of some of this. So there's not only staff time, but, you know, we sent out the packets for folks so that you had handouts, you had different resources, you had the Ruckus handbooks, and we, you know, also gave financial support to like organizations like Hardy Girls Healthy Women, who spent so much time with us in that first session. So there are like financial costs to this, which we are very happy to pay, but happy to have folks who are willing to step in and support that. So that's actually one form of activism and one form of like labor that we wanted to just honor. So Dania, can you share our sponsors with us?
Yeah. Our sponsors for Girls' Day at the Statehouse 2021 was Abigadasset Foundation, the Law Offices of Joe Bornstein, Lee Auto Malls, the Maine Education Association, and Spectrum.
Hey, thank you so much. And then in addition to our financial sponsors, we had support from 28 volunteers who chipped in as session moderators and Discord moderators or packet stuffers, people who just gave their time because they believed this was important and valuable. We had support from 24 legislators who joined us in one way or another and led small group conversations with y'all. From 12 community organizers, that's the folks who are here right now. From 10 lobbyists, who are people doing activism as policy change makers in a different way. From one senator, one congresswoman, one secretary of state, and one governor also joined us. And then we had a planning committee that included Abby Kemble, staff from Hardy Girls Healthy Women, and Dania and Logan. I also want to say a huge, big thanks to Dania and Logan because they put so much time and energy and effort into making this a great event for you all. And I want to thank 175 girls and gender expansive young folks who showed up week after week on these calls, on Discord, through email and other kinds of ways to connect, because I just absolutely loved and was inspired by and learned from all of you. I think it was such a great event. We really hope that Girls' Day at the Statehouse is an opportunity for you to learn more about how these systems work. We know that policy change and this kind of systems change sometimes feels really far away, or it feels like something that other people do. And what I hope is that through this, you had an opportunity to like discover that actually it's people just like you and people in your communities who are the ones really making change for Maine, and on a national and an international level. You heard today from Shenna that she grew up without electricity and running water. Like, whatever your life circumstances are, whatever your gender expression, whatever your experiences, background, where you were born, like, all of you have an opportunity to be change makers in your lives, in your families, in your neighborhoods, your communities, and in the state. So I hope that you're coming away from this feeling that you know more about how that change happens, that you have more skills for that, and that you feel more confident to be able to participate in those ways. So thanks to all of you as well. I do have one more ask for all of you, which is that we have an evaluation for this event. I really want to hear your honest feedback about how it worked, how it could be better next time, and anything else you want to let us know about your learning so that we can make sure we are learning from you after the fact and can continue to make this the best possible event that it could be next year or for all of our events. So I just dropped a link in the chat. We're also going to email it out. It'll take you about 5 minutes to do, but it's really important to us. And I really want to hear back from all of you. So I appreciate the wisdom that you'll bring to that survey. And then I want to take a minute just to take a quick picture. So if you don't want to be in a picture, then you can go off cam or put your hand over your cam. But here's your chance. If you do want to be in a picture, you will be a very tiny square. So don't worry, you will not be like up front. But here's your moment. We are gonna take a picture. Dania is gonna scroll through all the slides so that anybody who is on this today we can capture on the video. So say cheese. Oh, we have to unmute for this because this is our opportunity to like make a little noise, say actual cheese. Let's hear from each other, and then we are gonna head out. So,
Jewel cheese.
What if you don't like cheese? Lettuce.
That was great.
All right. I think that's it. So happy Girls Day, happy Girls Month. I'm so glad you all could be here, and I hope to see you on the internet, and I hope to see you running for office someday, and I hope to. So.
Yep. And we'll be sending out a final email too. So don't worry if you didn't catch all that. But keep an eye on your email inbox too.
Hi. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.